Ever get that feeling, you know, that one, like the internet's reading your mind? Like you're thinking about, I don't know, maybe finally booking that trip to Fiji, and then bam, suddenly you're seeing ads for Fiji everywhere.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
It's like, come on, internet, I know you're listening.
Right.
But it turns out this isn't just some weird coincidence. We're diving into surveillance capitalism today. And let me tell you, it's way deeper than a few targeted ads.
Yeah, way deeper. It's more like companies are building their whole business model, their whole strategy around not just collecting our data, but like really analyzing it.
So they can predict what we'll do.
Predict, and then even manipulate, even influence how we behave.
Okay, that is kind of creepy.
It is. It is.
And we got two super interesting articles for this deep dive. One by Enrique Muriel Torrado and another by Andrea Leticia Johann.
Oh, I like those. Good stuff.
One of them really lays out exactly how this whole surveillance thing actually works, the nitty-gritty.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. And then the other one, it looks at, what can we actually do about it? Like, are we just stuck with this?
Right, right.
So let's start with Muriel Torrado. He says this whole data collection thing, it's not your grandma's data collection anymore.
Not even close.
Like, it's gone way beyond just, knowing what websites you visit.
Way beyond. He argues companies are straight up trying to shape our behavior, online, offline, all of it, to make the biggest profit.
See, that's what I don't like.
And the engine behind this whole thing, he calls it behavioral surplus.
Okay, behavioral surplus sounds kind of creepy, doesn't it?
A little bit, right. It's basically all the data they collect about us that's like beyond what they actually need to give us the service.
So every time I click on a link or like a post or even just hover over something,
it all goes into this big data trail about you, and it reveals way more than you think.
So back to my Fiji example.
Yeah, the Fiji trip.
It's not just that they know I'm looking at flights. They're analyzing when I'm searching, what kind of flights I click on, maybe even checking out like my spending habits to see when I'm most likely to actually book that expensive ticket.
Exactly. They're building a whole profile on you. And here's where it gets really interesting and kind of scary. Muriel Torrado uses this phrase. He says they're trying to gamify our lives.
Gamify. Okay, now we're getting into like Black Mirror territory.
Right. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi show.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But what does he mean, gamify our lives?
So he's saying they take all this behavioral surplus, this data, and use it to basically turn our everyday choices into like data points in their game.
Okay, I'm listening.
They're trying to figure out what we want, maybe even before we know it ourselves, and then nudge us towards doing things, making decisions that benefit them, boost their bottom line.
So it's less about showing me an ad for a Fiji vacation and more about figuring out how to make me actually crave that Fiji vacation.
At the exact moment when you're most likely to pay top dollar for it.
Well, okay. That's something else.
It is. And this is where this whole ubiquitous computing thing comes in.
Ubiquitous what now?
Ubiquitous computing. It's this idea that technology is becoming so embedded in our lives, so seamless that we don't even realize it's there, let alone that it's collecting data on us.
Okay, so like those smart fridges that can order groceries for you when you're running low.
Exactly. Except it's not just your fridge. It's our phones, smart speakers, even our cars. They're all becoming data collection devices.
So wait, they're watching everything we do, trying to figure out what we want before we even do?
Pretty much. And as technology keeps getting more advanced, it's only going to get harder to avoid this kind of surveillance.
Okay, hold on a sec. I need to process all this. So it's not just those weird targeted ads anymore, right?
Yep.
It's like they're trying to engineer our desires before we even have them.
Kinda, yeah.
That's wild. It's like that movie Inception, but with, I don't know, vacation packages and that ice cream you were talking about.
That's a good analogy, actually. And it really makes you think, what does free will even mean anymore, in this digital age?
I know, right? And that kind of leads into this second article we're looking at, the one by Andrea Leticia Johann.
Okay.
So if these tech companies are basically, as Muriel Torrado said, trying to gamify us, is there any way to, opt out? Not play their game?
Well, that's what Johann's article is all about. And she brings up Cory Doctorow, and he has a really interesting take on this.
Okay, tell me more.
So Dr. Rowe, he's saying the amount of data they collect, it's not actually the main problem.
Really? I thought that was the scary part.
It's scary, but it's about who controls that data. That's the core issue.
So it's not the data itself. It's more about, power.
Yeah, exactly. Monopoly power.
Monopoly power.
Dr. O argues that when you've got these huge companies, controlling the internet, the social media we use, the apps we can even download, the search engines,
They're everywhere.
it basically kills competition. There's no other options.
So we're kind of stuck with whatever they decide.
Basically. And when there's no other choice, then those manipulative tactics they use, they work even better.
Right. Like, if you only have one restaurant in town, you kind of have to eat whatever they're serving, even if you're not crazy about it.
Exactly. And Johan talks about how Dr. O uses Apple's iOS as an example of this.
Oh, okay. How?
So Apple, they have super strict rules about which apps you can actually install on your iPhone, right? Dr. Grue calls this building a walled garden, which basically means Apple controls everything within its little world.
I mean, their garden, their rules.
And that stifles competition, Other companies can't get a foothold.
I see.
Which, again, gives Apple even more power over its users.
Okay, so this is all starting to click for me.
Yeah.
This walled garden idea, it's like that feeling you get when you're stuck on a social media platform you don't even really like.
Been there.
Like, maybe you hate how they use your data, but all your friends are there, and you don't want to, miss out on everything.
It's tough. That right there, that's the impact of monopoly power. It's hard to leave, even if you want to, even if you don't agree with what they're doing. And this is where Dr. O's argument gets really interesting. He says, if we want to fight back against surveillance capitalism, we have to break up these big monopolies.
Okay, yeah, I mean...
We need more competition online, more choices.
Right, so instead of that one restaurant, we need more restaurants, different kinds of food, different prices.
Now you're getting it.
So let's recap for a sec. We've got Muriel Tirado, right? And he's saying, hey, watch out. These companies are using your data to basically program what you want.
Yeah.
And then we've got Dr. O, and he's saying, hold on. The real problem here isn't just the data, it's who controls it all.
Bingo. And I think looking at both these articles together, it shows us how complex this whole thing really is. It's more than just some targeted ads. It's about recognizing these companies have a ton of power.
Because they have all our data.
Exactly. And because they control so much of the internet itself.
Wow, okay, my brain is officially fried. From behavioral surplus to gamified lives to monopolies running the internet. This is a lot.
It's a lot to digest for sure. But honestly, the most important thing to remember is that there are actual people behind these systems.
Okay, that makes me feel a tiny bit better.
It's not some big, scary machine we can't control. We actually have power. We can push for change if we want to.
I like the sound of that. But realistically, what can I, the average person listening, actually do about any of this?
First things first, be aware. The more you actually understand how this stuff works, how they collect your data, what they do with it, how they use it to influence you, the easier it is to make smarter choices.
You're not saying I need to, become a hacker or anything.
No. Just little things. Everyday choices. Be mindful of the apps you're using. Think twice before you share something. Maybe actually check those privacy settings for once.
Right, because all those little things add up, right?
Exactly. Remember that saying, death by 1,000 cuts? It's kind of like that, but, manipulation by 1,000 clicks or something.
Oof, too real. Okay, so that's the small stuff. What about the bigger picture?
Well, we can use our voices, support data privacy laws, tell our representatives we want them to actually do something about these monopolies. Those things have a real impact.
So vote with our wallets, our voices, and, our actual votes.
You got it. We got to support the companies and the policies that match the kind of digital world we actually want to live in, right?
Exactly. And that reminds me of something Dr. O said about, taking back control.
Oh.
So if these companies are trying to gamify our lives, which is still kind of freaking me out. By the way, Dr. O says we can be more than just, pawns in their game.
I love that. Instead of being these passive players, just letting them control everything, we can be more active.
Yeah. We can actually try to change the rules.
Exactly. Because this isn't just about some abstract tech stuff. It's about the future of the internet. Even, the future of our society.
No pressure.
Right. But seriously, we got to decide if we're willing to fight for a digital world that is more fair, more ethical.
Wow. On that note, to everyone listening, what kind of player are you going to be? This has been a wild ride, folks. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.